So in the last 15 years of me being in SaaS, I know that sounds like a long time, but I started about 5 SaaS projects. Out of those 5 SaaS projects, 3 of them became real companies. Out of those 3 real companies, 2 of them grew and exited, and 1 of them still runs now and is profitable. So I've learned a few things about what it takes to actually make companies successful in SaaS. But also, it made me wonder what went wrong with the 2 that didn't become real companies. And if you're in that stage where you're starting a SaaS business and you're starting to think about, well, what does it take to make a successful SaaS company? Then you might also be wondering what happened with those 2 and why did the other 3 succeed? And so I took some time to think about it. And I've also been stress testing this framework. I now work with about 85 founders as part of my launch program. They're pre-revenue companies, which is separate from my go-to-market program, scaling companies. And so anyway, I figured out a framework that's been working really well, and I want to share that with you today. So on this episode, I'm going to walk into the 3 principles that you absolutely need to know that will help you actually build a successful SaaS company. Intro. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Unstoppable. I'm TK. Ooh, that hurt quite a bit. I'm TK, and on this channel, I help SaaS founders like you grow your SaaS business faster with an unstoppable strategy. Now, if you are new to this channel, welcome. I drop an episode every Sunday with actionable principles, strategies on how to grow your SaaS business faster. So if you're new and you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon, that way you'll get notified every single time I drop an episode with the TK energy. Now, if you're already part of this fast-growing community of founders and SaaS leaders, if you're part of my coaching programs, my people, welcome. It's really awesome to see you back over here. Now, in the companies that I've started and scaled and exited, and in the projects that didn't quite go anywhere, I call them projects until they become real companies with real revenues, I learned a few things about what it takes, about that art of the start. When you're just starting out and trying to get the idea right and the product right, and you're trying to get to those initial revenues. I learned a ton. And I made a bunch of mistakes too. I came as being an engineer. I didn't embrace sales and marketing. I didn't know how startups worked. And so learned a ton. And so what I wanted to do in this video today is I'm going to take you through the 3 principles you absolutely need to know. And these principles, not only have I battle tested over the last 15 years, now I actually help pre-founders and founders that are pre-revenue actually apply these to be sure that they're able to break through and get to that initial product market fit, those initial revenues for their SaaS businesses. So if you're excited to dig in, go ahead and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, and let's go to principle number 1. Okay, so principle number 1 is actually not product. Now, I know I'm an engineer by trade, and then I really learned how to actually become a founder and scale companies. And my natural inclination is also always like, hey, what's the product? What's the disruption? Like, how do we make it a really great product? But it turns out step number 1 is not product. Step number 1 is actually market. Step number 2 is product. So let me explain. What happens a lot of times, and especially for those 2 projects that didn't go anywhere, I obsessed about the product. But for the other projects, when we actually focus on the market and who actually needs this, what's the actual problem we're solving, how big is that market, do we know enough about that market? When we thought about those things, those companies, those projects turned into real companies, and those products actually became successful. And this is all true, not just in my own experience, but also founders that I've worked with, because the founders that actually really understood the market then created a really successful product. But the ones that created a product and constantly kept searching for the right market or ignored the market principle, they just couldn't hit that escape velocity. Now, you might be wondering, okay, market, got it. How do you break that down? There's 3 key things under market that you have to think about. The first one you want to think about is this an important and urgent problem? The second thing you want to think about is, do you have domain knowledge? And I'll explain each of these. And the third one you want to think about is there competition? Which I know is a little counterintuitive. All of this is counterintuitive, which is why this makes sense. This is why this is valuable, right? If it was obvious, then you'd be like, oh yeah, I did it already. You don't need to watch it. So Let's take these one at a time. Under market, the first thing you really want to figure out is the problem that your product wants to solve, or maybe you built a product, maybe you haven't built it yet. The problem that you want to solve as part of your company, as part of your SaaS company, is it an important and urgent problem? Sometimes a problem is important, meaning we have to solve this, but it's not urgent. And so they'll never really get to it. It's important, but they're never going to get to it. Sometimes it's an urgent problem, but the problem is not that important. And so they're like, well, we really need to fix it, but we can get away with not solving it. But when it's important and urgent, that's where products tend to thrive, because when you go in and say, hey, we solved this, they're like, oh my God, we need to solve that right now. So it needs to be an important and urgent problem. The other thing that you really need is domain knowledge. You don't want to be that guy that is actually looking to disrupt the wedding industry, but you're single, you've never been married, you've never been part of the wedding industry, and you're like, I'm going to disrupt the wedding industry. And that analogy plays out all the time. Founders that actually stick to a market where they have some domain knowledge tend to do really well, because they know how real that market is. They tend to know people in that market. They tend to understand the dynamics of that market. And SaaS is so huge now, there's so many markets to go after. You want to actually find a market that you have domain knowledge around, or you can quickly get domain knowledge around, or get a co-founder who has the domain knowledge, and you are the person that's actually the technical person or the sales and marketing person, but they have the domain knowledge. What's important is that you pick a market where you actually are solving an important problem and you actually have domain knowledge in that market. When you marry those two, then you actually have something. It's not guaranteed, but there's a good chance that this is going to work out really well. But there's also this one more thing, and this is, again, counterintuitive, which is why this works. You want to figure out if there's competition. If you can't find any competition solving this important urgent problem, and you have domain knowledge, but you're like, there's just literally like no one doing this, there may be a very good reason. There may be a lot of companies in the graveyard in this market where they try to solve it and it looked like a good idea, but they couldn't break through. Now, it's not to say that you can't break through, but it's always a good signal to understand, is there competition? If there's competition, then that's good, it's healthy. If there isn't, then why? What did they learn? So then maybe we stand a shot, or maybe this is actually not an important urgent problem that we should be going into. It's a trap. Basically, it's a trap. So that's market. And you can start to see how, two of my projects where I got so enamored with the product and this vision I had around the product, I kept working on it, but I never stopped to think about the market, and therefore it never really found that product market fit. Everyone says product market fit, but they never think about where it came from, but this is where it came from. You want to think about the market distinct from the product, but you want to think about the market first. Okay, so that's principle number one, think about market first. Now, once you have identified the market, you have identified the urgent and important problem, and you're like, I have domain knowledge around this, that's why I can vouch for this. You've started to see some competition, and you're like, cool, how do we win? What does a product look like? Now we can actually go and create a compelling product. You, again, fall into a certain trap under a product. The product ends up being, well, how full featured does the product going to be, or what does an MVP look like? And the biggest trap here is founders have the spectrum that they have to go into. On one end of the spectrum, they're trying to get to an MVP, minimum viable product. It's like the least amount that you can build. On the other end of the spectrum, you have a full featured product, right? Now, the problem here is that you want to think about your product as you think about your market, and you want to make sure you don't fall into either of these traps. So the easiest trap to fall into is you create an MVP and it sucks. You may be trying to solve this important and urgent problem, but really it's not compelling. I've seen plenty of SaaS offerings where the market they were trying to sell into, they're like, look, the spreadsheet is good enough. We really don't need a full SaaS product for this, even though there are a lot of opportunities to turn spreadsheets into real SaaS businesses. So that's one place where you can really get trapped. You just doing too bare minimum of a product, and as you try to get it out there, people are like, this is just not compelling enough. I don't want to switch how I do my job, or I don't want to risk it, or I don't want to have to take the time to learn this new thing. This is not compelling. The other end of the spectrum is also just as much of a trap, because over here you can actually get into the one more feature trap. And the one more feature trap is where people aren't quite buying your product, and you keep telling yourself you're that one feature away from everything working. You're like, oh, if I just build this one more feature, then everyone will buy and it's all gonna be amazing and it's gonna be perfect. That's what I call the one more feature trap. And both ends of this spectrum, when you're figuring out your product strategy, are essentially traps. So you might be wondering, well, what does that mean? Like, how do I break through this, right? And turns out this is the zone that you really wanna go after. And this is the zone where it's the sweet spot. And the sweet spot is you figure out what is the 80-20 in the market that you are going after. What does that mean? Well, let's just say, with ToutApp, for example. ToutApp was a sales engagement platform. We pioneered that space. We were backed by Andreessen Horowitz. We grew the company and then we sold it to Marketo. Marketo was in the marketing automation space. When we first started ToutApp, we knew we wanted to serve salespeople. And that's where we identified the market. We were like, oh, this is where most of our happy customers are. So let's double down on that. So we iterated on our market strategy. Once we did that, we were like, well, how do we break in? And we knew that most salespeople are either using email or they're using a CRM. And one trap would be for us to try and go after CRM. We're like, well, let's make a better CRM for our salespeople. And we were like, well, there's no way we can catch up to Salesforce or HubSpot or any of the CRMs that were there at that time. And there were plenty of crappy CRMs that were really not scaling. Or on the other hand, we could do a minimum viable product, but if we try to do a minimum viable product, it would never stack up to the competitive market of CRMs. Salespeople aren't going to switch. And so we were in this catch-22. But then what we found was there was this part of their workflow that was completely broken. It wouldn't work in CRMs. Back then, CRMs didn't really help you email prospects. They didn't help you follow up. They didn't help you prospect. And they had to leave the CRM and go to the email to do that. But when they were in the email, I had no idea they were in sales, so none of the tooling was there for them. And what we found was we didn't have to build a full CRM solution so we can escape this trap. We didn't actually have to try and build something crappy that had to compete with the CRM or the mindshare. We didn't have to build a full email client because then again, we would not be able to compete. So what we said was, you know what? 20%, the 20% of their workflow that's completely broken, but it's the most important, is their ability to prospect and to follow up, to be able to send a sales email, to be able to use the right messaging, to be able to know what happens after you send it. And that's how ToutApp was really born and the sales engagement was really born. And so we found that that was our 20%. That 20% would be disruptive. If we could rework that most important part of that workflow, it would have massive impact. And as we did that, we were able to break into email, then we were able to expand over time. Over time, we actually had our own window that would keep open all the time. We actually had deals they could track, they could update Salesforce from us. We started to take over more and more of their experience, but we started with that 20%. And today, sales engagement as a category is an immense category. It's over $5 billion in value, and it's continuing to grow, multiple unicorns in the space. And the reason that all these companies succeeded was because we started essentially with what is the 80-20 for the market we're going after, and how can we disrupt a part of that workflow with our SaaS product and then earn the right to expand from there. And so what you want to understand is, as you start to understand which market you're going after for this market and the problem, what is the 80-20? What is the sweet spot? And that's how you figure out what is the right product to build to start a successful SaaS company. Now, before I go into principle number 3, and believe it or not, principle number 3 is just as important as 1 and 2, and you have to do these in parallel, not sequentially. But before I get into that and why that's important, let me just pause here for a second. Are you starting to see the power in this? Are you starting to see the power of how you need to do the market first and answer these 3 questions, and then you do the product strategy and figure out what the 80-20 is? And if you do it in this sequence first, and then you iterate from there, it completely changes the likelihood of success for your SaaS company. You're starting to see the power in this. Can I just get a yes in the comments below? Also, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It really likes it when you do that. Go and smash that button. And also, if you're in this stage where you're in the pre-revenue stage, or you maybe have a product and you're trying to really figure out what market am I in? How do I frame my product? What's the go-to-market? How do I get to initial revenues? I run a webinar every single week to dig deeper into that part of the SaaS journey. How to go from 0 to initial revenues without wasting months building the wrong product. So you should definitely check out that webinar, register for it. I'll link to it below. I'll tell you more about it at the end of this video, but don't go anywhere right now. Let's go to principle number 3 because this is super important for you to know. And by the way, if you haven't smashed that like button already, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Like so when you do that. Okay, cool. Number 3, what is number 3? Number 3 is go to market. Now, when it comes to a SaaS business, there's essentially a few things you need to do for go to market, right? You need to have sales and you need to have marketing. And sales and marketing essentially mobilizes the product. Now, I've been in SaaS long enough where in the Web 1.0 and the Web 2.0 days, we had this saying called build it and they will come. And build it and they will come was a complete fallacy because if you just built it doesn't mean they will come. You needed sales and marketing. And now everyone knows that. Like it's a dumb thing and it's like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. But In the Web3 world or today's world, the analogy to that or the analog to that is we're product led. And I meet a lot of founders. I'm like, hey, what's your go-to-market strategy? They're like, oh, we're product led. I'm like, well, what's your go-to-market strategy? Like, oh, we're product led. It's like, listen, I can understand how you can build a product that maybe has a free trial, and within it are levers so that people will be able to actually swipe a credit card and buy without talking to sales. So let's just say you take sales out of the equation. But in order to be product led and drive that growth, you still need product awareness. And that's marketing. You can call it whatever you want, but that's still marketing. Those are the same principles of marketing. And what you want to do is make sure that you don't waste months building a product, not thinking about market. You want to make sure you think about the market and build a product based on that. But you also don't want to go build without talking to anyone. So you want to make sure that from day one of you actually starting your SaaS company, in order to make it successful, you start thinking about go-to-market as well. You might be wondering, well, how do we do that? How do we actually make that happen? There's 3 things that you want to be doing. The first thing you want to be doing is you want to build an audience first. The second thing you'll want to be doing is you want to develop your value prop. And I'll explain what each of these are. And the third thing you want to be doing is you want to have initial pilots or beta users, whatever you want to call them. And all of this needs to start happening from day 0, meaning as you're building out your market strategy and as you're figuring out what your product's going to be, like all of these things are kicking off relatively in parallel. And that's super important. Now, what does this mean? Well, first, before you even have the full product, build an audience. If you know who you're going to be marketing this to, who you're going to be selling this to, build an audience with these people. Why? Because if you can build a newsletter, a blog, a YouTube channel, an Instagram, a Twitter account that really gets these people to understand the problem you're solving, you're actually going to be able to validate before you even build the product whether you're solving an important, urgent problem or not. If you are starting to build a list of these people, then as you start to put some shape to the product, even your alpha version or your beta version, you can actually invite them in to see what their feedback is so that you're not wasting time building the wrong features or you're not building something that's just not compelling. You'll get those early signals. If you build an audience first, then as you are talking to these people and they're using the product, in their own words, you'll actually be able to define what the value proposition is, which will then allow you to get more people. A value proposition is a simple way of articulating exactly what problem you're solving and what solution you're delivering, but it's non-obvious. Until you actually get in front of customers and you kind of test it and you hear how they describe it, the best value propositions come from how your customers describe it and you put it into a framework that works. And so as you do that, you're going to have an audience, you're going to get lots of feedback, you're going to build the right product, you're going to validate the market, you're going to develop the value prop, and out of that, you're going to get initial pilots. Pilots meaning people will prepay or pay early for the product so they can actually pilot it, or you get beta users, they use it and give you real feedback. And the reason you want to do this from day 0 is it will actually de-risk you building the wrong product. It'll ensure that you are actually amassing a group of people that are in the market you're targeting and you're validating you're building the right product and the market is real. And that way you're not wasting any time. There's no sequencing to this. And when done right, what you're essentially doing is you're defining the market and that helps you build a product. As you're building the product, you're also building the go-to-market. And as you're doing the go-to-market, you can actually build a better product, validate your market, and basically it becomes this full loop where everything gets iterated on over and over based on these 3 pillars that you are doing. And that, if you approach it that way, you will be able to build a successful SaaS company. If you skip the market piece and you don't do the go-to-market and you just obsess over product, then a very high likelihood that it won't turn into a real company. It'll just be another project that never went anywhere. If you build a product and you do some work on the market, but you don't do the go-to-market, you might end up falling into this trap right here because you're not getting the real market input to figure out what's important, what's not, what's compelling, and what's not. So when you do these 3 things, market, product, and go-to-market, and you keep iterating on all 3 of these, your market strategy, your product strategy, and go-to-market strategy, that will allow you to be 10 times more effective and increase your chances of getting to product market fit, getting to initial revenues, and building something that's actually compelling and solving an important and urgent problem. And so now you know, if you are in that pre-revenue stage, how to actually start a successful SaaS company, how to make sure you're not building the wrong product. But you may not know, well, how do you flesh out your market strategy? How do you flesh out your product strategy? How do you flesh out your go-to-market strategy? How do you even build an audience? What does a value prop look like? You may not know all of these things. So every week, I actually run a webinar. It's specifically for founders, aspiring founders that are pre-revenue, maybe even pre-product. If you have a product, that's great too. But as long as you're pre-revenue, this webinar is perfect for you. If you've got like $1 in revenue, you're pre-revenue. So that is perfect for you as well. And this webinar, I dig deeper into the market strategy, product strategy, and go-to-market strategy, and how to think about these. I dig a little bit deeper into what makes for an important, urgent problem. I dig deeper into these things, and I run this every week. So if you want to learn more about how to launch a successful company, successful SaaS company, you want to dig deeper into these 3 principles, I've given you an overview here, then I invite you to register for the webinar. All you need to do is just go to tkcater.com/webinar. Literally, that's at tkcater.com/webinar. I'll also link to it below. That way you can click on it if you'd like to. Otherwise, you just type in tkcater.com/webinar and you can register for the webinar. I run it every week. If you got value from this, please smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It just loves it when you do that. So does my team, and so do I. Like, it just means a lot to us. We put a lot of love into these videos. I drop a video based on my 15 plus years of experience in the SaaS industry every Sunday. So be sure to hit the subscribe button and that bell icon, that you'll get notified every single time I drop an episode. If you have a fellow friend, co-founder, team member, other founders, other aspiring founders that would get value from this video, please share it with them. It'll just mean the world to us. And also, check out that webinar. Go to tkcater.com/webinar and you can register for it so we can spend some more time. We can really dig into these principles in an even deeper way. And lastly, remember, everyone needs a strategy for their life and their business. When you are with us, yours is going to be unstoppable. I'm TK, and I'll see you in the next episode.